Star Wars The Clone Wars Season 7 finally just finished its run on Disney+. It was 12 episodes long, and this is the show that takes place in between the events of episodes 2 and 3. It was actually a really big deal for a while when it initially aired on Cartoon Network. They had 6 seasons, and then it just abruptly got canceled out of nowhere, and had a really unfulfilling ending, so gratefully Disney brought it back with one final season. If you have not watched The Clone Wars yet, and you're planning on doing that at some point in the future, or if you just haven't gotten around to watching Season 7 yet, I would strongly suggest not watching this video because I am going to get into spoiler detail, because I want to get a little bit in depth as to some of the plot points and character moments and all the stuff that happens in this season. With that, you have been warned, so let's talk about the last season of Star Wars The Clone Wars. In regards to my history with this show, I didn't really watch it that much when it came on. My brothers were really into it, a lot more so than I was, and so sometimes I would watch a few episodes here and there, but it wasn't really something that I'd watch while it was on. But later when Disney announced that they were going to be doing another season, and everybody was kind of freaking out about it, I kind of wanted to see what all the fuss was about. So once all the episodes got uploaded to Disney+, I started watching a handful of them. I found a graphic online that shows you which episodes are the ones that are just really filler and that you kind of can skip through, and then like highlighting all the best arcs and which ones you really need to see. So I've watched all the main important story arcs in the show, and what I have seen of it, I've absolutely loved. And the show does a really good job at showing you what the Clone Wars was actually like. I think one of the show's greatest strengths is that it didn't really hold back. Some of the scenes in this show are really dark, and they actually go to these places that you wouldn't expect in a show made for kids, but they went for it, and I think this show is all the better for it. So going into Season 7, I was really pumped. So this season tells a story over 12 episodes and 3 arcs, each divided amongst 4 episodes, and the first one we get is known as the Bad Batch arc. In this arc, we follow some clones known as the Bad Batch. These guys are kind of some unconventional clones that don't really play by the rules and just want to blow stuff up, and really what the center of this arc focuses on is retrieving Echo, an old clone who was thought to be dead, but now they figure out that he's alive and they have to go back and save him. And these episodes, for the most part, I really enjoyed. I think it was a really good way of bringing you back into the show, because this show's done a really good job of humanizing the clones and making them feel like real people, and you definitely do get a lot of that in these episodes. I wasn't particularly blown away by the story or anything, but what I will say about this arc is that it has some really good action. To me, it felt like they really stepped up the action sequences from the previous seasons. They're really fun to watch, and I thought they found a lot of really cool ways to make it interesting to look at. Like there was this one-take sequence towards the beginning of the show that I thought was awesome. So these were fun to watch, and it also has this really nice emotional core to it with the clones trying to rescue their long-lost brother in a way. So that I thought was really nice. The next arc is centered around Ahsoka, and we get to see what she's been doing after she left the Jedi Order in the last season. She crash lands at this mechanic's workshop and finds these 2 sisters who are trying to pull off some kind of spice raid, and she gets involved with them. But while she's doing this, she's also hiding from these sisters that she once was a Jedi, because you get this interesting backstory with these 2 sisters about something that happened in their past that makes them look at the Jedi in a negative way. These episodes were extremely disappointing because I was really excited about Ahsoka returning. She's probably the best character in the entire series, and I thought it'd be really cool to see what she's been doing after she's left the Jedi Order, because that arc from the last season was one of the most impactful in the entire series. But they just kind of wasted it on this really boring, strung-together storyline where she's helping these 2 sisters pull off this really inconsequential spice raid that doesn't really mean a whole lot. And they try to pull it off, but then they get thrown in jail, and then they get out of jail, and then they accidentally get put in jail again. And I don't know, the story was just not really that investing to me. I will say the most interesting thing about this arc is probably the backstory you get with these 2 sisters, because it makes you view the Jedi in a different way, and you kind of understand their motivations and why they see the Jedi in a negative light. And so that was kind of cool, but it just wasn't enough to keep me invested in the story. Overall, I feel like they wasted this arc, and they could have done something a lot more interesting with it. And at this point, we're 8 episodes into the new season, and as I was watching it, I was kind of surprised, because we had those first 4 episodes, which I will admit are pretty good, but they were just kind of average Clone Wars episodes, and it didn't really feel like anything was amounting to what was going to be the final season of the show. And then we had the next 4 episodes, which I just didn't really care about at all. But thankfully, we got the last 4 episodes of the show, and this shit was phenomenal. Right from the start of the first episode of this arc, I knew it was going to be awesome, because they really go out of their way to differentiate it from the previous episodes. You get this old retro Lucasfilm logo, and then the Clone Wars title appears in red, and they get rid of the narration intro, and they have this really dramatic music behind it. And that's because we all know that Order 66 is about to happen. So in this arc, we really just follow Ahsoka and the clones leading into Order 66 in Revenge of the Sith. and Anakin and Obi-Wan are kind of doing their own thing because we all know what happens to them in the movie. What I love about these episodes the most is that you get to see Order 66 from a new angle. We have Ahsoka and the clones, and they obviously have formed a really strong relationship with each other. But since the clones all have that inhibitor chip in them and Palpatine executes the order, you watch them turn on Ahsoka, and it's really heartbreaking. You get that great scene where Rex is literally doing everything he can to not kill Ahsoka, and eventually they finally take the inhibitor chip out of his head, and you kind of get this cool story where Rex and Ahsoka try to figure out what's happening together. And this goes back to what I really love about this show, is that it's not afraid to get dark, and it gets really serious here because you just feel the shock and the weight of what's about to happen, and there's this overwhelming sense of dread that's created by Order 66. Darth Maul also returns. You get to find out some really interesting things about how he's in on the plot to destroy the Jedi. His lightsaber duel with Ahsoka is freaking amazing. Probably one of the best lightsaber duels I've seen in all of Star Wars. It was unbelievable. And what I really liked about this scene was how cinematic it was. The lighting and the textures and the animation, they really stepped it up here. Also, they actually had Ray Park come back to do the mocap work. So the moves that Maul is doing here is the ones that we'd actually see from the Maul that we saw in Phantom Menace, which I think is so cool. Another thing that could have been a little bit shaky here was how they handled the tie-in with Revenge of the Sith, because we've seen before that sometimes when people kind of add a new angle onto a story that you already know in a show or in a movie, sometimes it doesn't always work, and they rewrite like integral things that happen into a story. That is not the case here. I thought they handled the tie-in extremely well, and they did a really good job of weaving the events around Revenge of the Sith. Like, you do get that one scene where Yoda and Mace Windu are having that meeting, and Mace Windu says, like, I sense there's a plot to destroy the Jedi or something like that. And so that scene actually happens, and then Ahsoka walks in and starts talking to Mace Windu. So they did a really good job of adding this extra layer onto what we already know in the Star Wars universe. And of course, the final episode is great. I love how it ends with that shot of Darth Vader standing there with Ahsoka's lightsaber. For me, what I really took away from this scene is that you can feel how empty Anakin must feel. Because by this point, Anakin has lost everything. Palpatine lied to him, he doesn't have Padme anymore, he doesn't have Obi-Wan anymore, he doesn't even have his relationship with Ahsoka, which is really the thing that's been fleshed out throughout this show. It's just so haunting and dark, and you really feel the weight of it all, and I didn't even think that a show like this was going to be able to create such an emotional reaction in me, but it did. These last 4 episodes could not have been any better. Some of the best Star Wars stuff that I've seen in years. Honestly, they could have just kept it at these 4 episodes and got rid of the previous 8, and I would have been more than okay with that. It was nice to see the first 8, and I enjoyed getting back into the show with them, but the last 4 are just so damn good that it makes the other ones feel kind of like they're nothing. But as a whole, I'm really happy with what Dave Filoni, the creative lead on the show, and his entire team did with this last season. It's not only top tier stuff from the prequel era, but I think it's one of the best Star Wars things I've seen in a really long time. And I think Clone Wars has really cemented itself as one of the best Star Wars things we've ever had. I'm going to give the final season of Star Wars The Clone Wars an 8 out of 10. If I was just reviewing the last 4 episodes by themselves, it'd be my perfect grade, 10 out of 10, no doubt about it. However, I have to review the other episodes with it, and so that's kind of why I'm giving it an 8 out of 10. I'm so happy that Disney brought this back. It definitely was the right decision on their part. And they're actually really showing us right now that they know how to make good Star Wars. And so I'm really looking forward to what they do in the future with Mandalorian and all the other projects we have. So guys, have you seen Star Wars The Clone Wars Season 7? What did you think about it? Let me know down in the comments. Let's talk about all this stuff. Also, be sure to subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.